Thanks for checking in to the State of Basketball Podcast, episode 13. I'm Adam Miller, and I'm here with Jaron Wilt each and every week. We're going to be bringing you the news and notes on all 11 Division I basketball schools in the state of Indiana, because in 49 states,
it's just basketball. So, real quick, obviously we always do power rankings first in the show, but today I just want to take the time to remind you that you're watching on YouTube, like the video, give us a little thumbs up, comment below kind of your favorite moment, your favorite topics that we talked about in the episode itself. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And then if you're listening on any podcast services, just go ahead and follow the channel, follow the page. That way you're always notified whenever a new episode comes out. It really helps us continue to grow, right? Like, we love doing this. We love interacting with all of our fans on our social media channels. And, you know, the more people that are aware of the show and the more we grow, the better content we can bring. And we've talked about it. We've got a lot of plans for the off season, a lot of plans going into next season, being halfway through this season already. And we just want to continue to grow and continue to provide the best content possible for y'all.
yeah, we want to, we were just talking before we went live, or not live, before we started recording, that we want to stream Selection Sunday. That could be fun.
Yep. So, you know, the bigger audience that we have, the bigger following, the more people we can reach, obviously, and the more content we can put out for our listeners.
Let's power rank some teams, Jaron.
Yes.
1 through 11, some shakeups. We had some big losses this week. We had some big wins this week. One of them was an in-state matchup, so a big win and a big loss. Yeah, one big win and one big loss in the same game. But let's talk about it. Where are we putting these teams this week?
Yeah, so starting at number 11 is Southern Indiana, dropping back from 10 last week. IUPUI made the jump from 11 to 10, where they currently are. Evansville is at 9, back from 8 last week. Valpo jumped up to 8 in our rankings. Last week they were 9.
They almost had 2 wins this week.
Yes, yeah, so big. They were one of our several in-state matchups. Purdue Fort Wayne is currently 7th in our rankings, back from 6th last week. Number 6 this week is Ball State University, the Cardinals, moving up from 7. Number 5 stayed the same. Really, our top 5 stayed the same, but number 5 is Notre Dame. Number 4, Indiana. Number 3 is Butler. Number 2 are the Sycamores of Indiana State. And the Boilermakers are number 1.
Always and forever, right?
Pretty much. There's not much that I think is going to make them bump back from number 1. I really think Purdue and
Indiana State are
locked. I think those are going to just be through the rest of the season.
Top 3 look locked.
Yes.
I mean,
even extending back to down to Butler as well.
The way it's looking right now, it almost looks like a toss-up between if it's more likely for Indiana to move up to 3 ever or move down to 5 ever, because they have been struggling. I think they're going to get through it, but we'll talk about that later. But I think that the top 4 are probably locked. Top 3 are definitely locked.
I mean, really, it's at this point in the season, it's which of the other 9 teams can... Really, it's 9 teams fighting for the 4 and 5 spot.
Yeah,
is the way I see it. So, which of the 9 teams that are remaining, excluding Purdue, Indiana State, and Butler, can crack our top 5 once the season ends?
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about like a Butler team sitting in 3rd right now, and their worst. They have 2 bad games left, which is at Georgetown and then at DePaul. Every other game is a top 60 game on KenPom. So unless they lose one of those 2, they're probably not going anywhere unless they're moving up. But Indiana State would have to have a terrible week.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how things continue to pan out. But let's go ahead and talk about Ball State. They moved up 1 spot in KenPom. They're at 276 currently. They went 1-1 this week, bringing their conference record to 1-5 and their overall record to 9-9. They won at Eastern Michigan, got a coveted road win for the Cardinals. Doesn't happen very often, but I guess it. I don't. Let me refrain. They don't lose at home very often. They still road games every now and again.
Yeah, but this one is surprising because it was their first conference win too.
Yeah. Yep. And then they lost to Miami of Ohio in overtime in Worthen Arena. So sucks they lost a home game. Sucks especially because it's overtime, and you really gotta make the most of that extra time there. But sometimes the ball just doesn't bounce your way.
Yeah, I really envisioned this week going differently for them. They got the win over Eastern Michigan, who's in like the 320s in Ken Palm. So it's a game that is losable on the road because it's on the road in conference, but it's a game that you should win. They did, and I was figuring that, okay, they're going back home against a good, not great Miami team.
Yeah.
And they go into the Miami game, and they let Miami just get back into the game at the very end. They hit a buzzer beater at the end of the game, and then Miami just takes that momentum, and it was basically all Miami in overtime.
Yeah. I mean, Miami, they ended the game. They ended regulation, and they started overtime with a game-high 13-0 run, right? They had 5 points to end regulation, including the buzzer beater you mentioned, and then the first 8 straight to start overtime. So that kind of...
And that was it.
Yep, that's enough momentum to carry them to the win, and it did.
Them hitting like that buzzer beater just killed them. I mean, in the Miami game, Bashir Jihad had a career high 29 points, and in the Eastern Michigan game, Davion Bailey had 23 and 7. He tied his career high. So you had good performances, just they could not hold on. They lost the momentum against Miami, and that's not something you see often at home.
Right.
And that really, really hurts because they could be sitting at 2-4. Not great in conference, mind you, but 2-4 is easy to then go, have a good week, then you're 4-4.
Yeah, I mean it's a huge momentum swing for them. Who obviously they picked up their first conference win, and if they could have just carried that momentum from Eastern Michigan into Worthen Arena, that would have been. You're looking at like you said, a much different spot in the conference standings.
Yes, they feel that you would feel a lot better. Yeah. It's just kind of demoralizing. You don't expect them to let the game slip away from them at home.
Yeah.
So that sucks.
Talking about the Eastern Michigan game, there are a few things that stood out to me. Is they started the game pretty slow. Like it was looking like they weren't gonna pull off the win up in Ypsilanti, and the first half shot 40% from the field. Good. Not great, not terrible. Second half, 60% from the field. They really, whatever Mike Lewis told them at halftime, kicked them into gear to pull off the win. It also snapped a 6-game losing streak that they were on, and it's their third straight loss to
Cardinals.
Sorry, it was Eastern Michigan's third straight loss. So if Ball State couldn't pull that off, it would have maybe not been the best thing ever. But
in the Miami game, they were up 11 with like 5 minutes. They just let Miami take the momentum, and they ended up losing it in overtime. So Miami hit their last 10 of their last 13 shots, and that was game for them. But Butler, won one, lost one this week. So they lost a road game in the Big East, which is expected. They lost at Xavier, and they won at home versus DePaul, which is also expected. You're playing DePaul, you should win that game.
You're also playing at Hinkle.
Yeah. So they won 1-1, lost one. So they went 1-1. They're 12-7 overall, and they're 3-5 in the conference. That Xavier win that Xavier loss doesn't kill you because Xavier's a good team,
especially at home.
The Cintas Center is an impossible place to win, no matter how good Xavier is.
Yep.
So, kind of the week I expected them to have. I just wish they'd been a little bit more competitive in the Xavier game. Losing by 14 is not great, but I mean, at the end of the day, they lost the game they were supposed to lose.
Yeah. I mean, Jalen Thomas did everything he could in that Xavier game. He had their double-double, 11 points, 10 rebounds. He heard us talking about him. Talked about it last week, and he he turned up. He's continuing to turn up.
Mm.
Butler did struggle from the field though. I think they shot
like
35% against Xavier. So
and
Xavier
that's not
shot 46%.
You're not
so.
you're not going to win a road game like that.
No,
especially in the Cintas Center. It was just a game of runs. I mean, Butler was up like 16-8, then gave up a 24-2 run, and then Butler went on a 20-3 run, and then Xavier went on a 13-0 run, and Xavier just did it more. I don't know.
Yeah. It was counterpunch after counterpunch, and Butler's counterpunches just weren't quite hitting as hard as Xavier's were. So,
and it was a 14-point game, but it wasn't that close.
Right.
It wasn't a game where like it's a 14-point game, but it feels closer. No, it felt a little bit worse than that, but kind of about right there.
Yeah.
But DePaul, that's a game that they can't lose, and they didn't lose it. So they handled business. Pierre Brooks had 20, so he's scored double digits every single game this year. So good for him. And Posh had 17 and 6 assists. And
yeah, I mean, Posh and DJ Davis, they combined. Butler had 11 steals. Those two combined for all 11.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty great. I mean, Posh, he tied his career high with 6 steals. And then it was a personal best for DJ Davis as well with those 5. So defensively, they were working hard to help the Bulldogs in transition. DJ Davis also went perfect from the line. You love that. He went only 7.
Yeah,
but still 7 for 7 from the line. Great night. He didn't realize this. He actually ranked 2nd nationally going into this game in free throw percentage at 96.2%.
Yeah, that's an insane number. But just like looking at their season as a whole, I mean, Butler's sitting at 3-5 in conference. But if you're looking at like that middle of the pack Big East, that's where they're probably going to finish. You've got teams like Marquette, Villanova, Xavier. They're all 4-3. St. John's 4-4. Providence is 3-4. So they're like, right there. They're one game back from these other teams. And they've still got, like I said, DePaul and Georgetown to play again.
Yep.
You figure 2 more wins there. And they've just got to, defend home court against most of these teams. They almost did it against Connecticut, so they can win those games at home. They can win any game at home.
Yeah.
So you figure if they can pick off.
Do they play Marquette a second time this season?
I believe so. I believe theirs is a true round robin. They play Marquette at home.
Okay, so I mean, hey,
so if they sweep Marquette,
we saw them beat Marquette on the road.
Yeah,
they played UConn competitively. They play every team competitively at home.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a very doable game at Hinkle too. That could help them out.
Yeah. So if you're looking at like games that they can steal on the road, I mean, their road games left. They have Georgetown. They should win that. They've got Creighton away and UConn away. Those are going to be tough. But then they've like Villanova and Seton Hall away are doable. So if you can steal one of those games, I think that they're feeling pretty good about their tournament chances. So defend home court. If you drop one at home, it's fine. But sweep Marquette, steal one away from home, I think that they're in the tournament. I think they're on the bubble. If they do that, they're probably in.
Yeah.
So
let's talk about Evansville.
An interesting week for them.
Yeah, they dropped 11 spots in KenPom. They're currently sitting at 238. They were 227 last week. They went 1-1. Still sitting 11-8 overall. Slowly picking up more ticks in the loss column though. They're 2-6 in the conference. Got a win over Valpo. Very close game over Valpo, and then they got dang near doubled up against. Actually, no, they did get doubled up.
More than doubled up.
Yeah. I did the math backwards. Against Drake. So
yeah, 97-48 loss at Drake, which Drake is a really good team. I mean, we saw them beat Indiana State by 11, and they led most of the game.
Yeah,
pretty by a decent margin. I think the most important thing for for Evansville is that they got that win over Valpo.
Yep.
They stopped the 5-game losing streak. So if they don't win this game, they're 7 games in a row.
Yeah.
Which is demoralizing. So it stopped the bleeding on their season. Having Humrickhouse back for that game was good. for that game and for, stopping the bleeding on the season, but
Yeah.
was that good for them long term? Like, will that put him back farther?
Yeah, I mean, Hummerhouse did not play against Drake.
Yeah.
And we don't know if it was because he, did he aggravate something when he played against Valpo? You don't know.
Yeah.
But
it's not good to see that he was in the game, limited minutes, and then did not play the next game.
Yeah, that's a red flag for sure.
Right.
When you think about their season outlook.
Yeah.
The game,
but then on the flip side, it's like, if you're ever going to miss a game, it's probably at Drake or Indiana State that you're like, you know what?
Do you think you can actually compete?
Hey, Ben, are you worth 49 points? No. Okay. So, maybe he was, maybe he's close. I just want to see him come back fully healthy.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, that Valpo game, we talked about it obviously on our last week, 2 different episodes really. We talked about the Valpo,
a lot of Valpo Evansville talk.
It was a pretty back and forth game, especially down the stretch. I was genuinely on the edge of my seat just as the minutes were ticking down, because it was, Valpo very much almost pulled it off.
Mm-hmm.
Evansville's defense made several huge stops at the end of the game.
Yeah, for
them to pull it off, but even Ragland, he said it was a complete team win, and it was. Everyone showed up when they needed to beat Valpo.
Yeah, that's exactly what I want out of any in-state matchup.
Yeah.
And I think that's why,
by far, our most enjoyable in-state matchup
last
week.
We had Evansville has played at Indiana State.
Yep.
But that's part of the reason why the IU Purdue game that we'll talk about later was so disappointing, is because when it's an in-state matchup, I don't care who wins, because we win and lose either way.
Yeah.
So I just want it to be close. And that's what we got. We got, Valpo getting behind and coming back and almost pulling it off. Lost by 3, and this one really felt like it could have gone either way. But
yeah,
Toomey had a good game in both games. He had 11 against Valpo, 13 against Valpo and against Drake. But, Chuck Bailey got his first start against Drake, so that's nice to see.
Yeah.
Him coming off, getting his first start ever, because he's a freshman, his first start. So that's good for him. But they shot abysmally. Drake's defense is great.
Yeah, and not only did they couldn't buy a bucket.
Yeah.
And Drake also shot the lights out of the gym.
Mm-hmm.
The ball left their hand and it was going in the basket.
64%.
Yeah. that ain't bad. I mean, even Evansville, they switched up their defense pretty early in the first half. They shifted from man to a zone.
Yeah.
And
wasn't enough.
Well, Drake kind of it was like one of those things. It was they weren't ready for it.
Yeah.
And it definitely slowed them down a little.
Yeah.
But
for
they just
couple possessions.
They just shot lights out, and it didn't matter. Nothing Evansville threw at them made a difference.
Yeah. So I mean, Ken Pom projects them to go 15-16 for the rest of the season, which would be a little bit of a letdown after they had a winning season last year, had a pretty good season last year.
Mm-hmm.
But what was it? Oh, the thing that stood out to me is they got killed on the glass too, 23-39, and they only had 1 offensive board. So they've got to really work hard. I'm sure that they, had some tough practices after that game.
You know who also had some tough practices?
Apparently the tough practices didn't work after the first one for IU, but IU went somehow only down to 96th in Ken Pom from 91.
Well, it helps that they played 2 top 10 dang near opponents.
Yeah.
Top 15 definitely.
So they went 0-2 this week, 12-17 overall, and they're 4-4 in the Big Ten.
12-7.
12-7. Yeah. Oh my God. Might be 12-17 sometime to end the season. Let's hope not. That is not a projection by me. They lost to Purdue at home, 87-66, and they lost at Wisconsin, 91-79.
Yeah, I mean, so
I'll just let that linger.
And I'm gonna move right past it because I don't want to think about it. The Purdue game, big takeaways for me. Mack and Ware got auto benched with 2 fouls in the first half, and that just killed any of Indiana's hopes of competing. They just lost any kind of rhythm. I mean, Mack was playing lights out.
He started the game with 5 points right off the bat.
He
and it looked like the game was going a completely different direction than it went. Like, I left the room when it was like 5-2 or something, and I came back and it was like 13-9, 13-7 or something. I was like, what just happened?
Yeah. It was, I'm not a huge proponent of auto benching in general. And if you follow Indiana to any capacity, especially on Twitter, a lot of the fans also did not agree with the auto benching. It's a hindsight thing, right? Who knows? I think Mack finished the game with 2 fouls, and Ware finished the game with 3 fouls.
Yeah.
So who knows how that would be different if they would have played or if they would have played regular minutes in the first half. It doesn't matter. That's just my big standout thing was that it definitely killed any of their chance of competing in that game.
I mean, I don't really want to go too deep into the numbers. If you follow Indiana at all, you've seen everything on Twitter. People are up in arms, talking, so much trash about the team, even after the Wisconsin game, but before that too. But look at it big picture. Woodson is 3-2 over Purdue. He won one in Mackey last year. So, if you're an Indiana fan, you have that positive, right?
Yep.
He's still 3-2. Purdue fans would say, well, we're 14-4 the last, whatever it is.
Who cares?
But
history.
So like looking at an Indiana perspective, they are 3-2. Woodson is 3-2. X got a flagrant one and Sparks got a flagrant one. X body checked Zach Edey. Got an F1, which is understandable. Thought that one could have gone either way. Peyton Sparks had a hook and hold. Hook and hold being classified as an F1 is just kind of crazy to me.
Yeah.
It's like, I get it, but also that doesn't, like, looking at things that are F1 and at like flagrant 1, flagrant 2, and like saying also, a hook and hold doesn't feel the same, doesn't have the same like negative effect to me. Like a hook and hold is just it just kind of happens sometimes when you're fighting down in the post.
I think the hard thing too is you can't really determine intent based on a replay for a hook and hold, and so they have to just classify it as a flagrant one because it's.
But there were all those stats like saying like Indiana has this many flagrants in these these past few games, so it's like a couple of them were hook and holds. So it's not like Xavier Johnson punching someone in the nuts. Hook and hold, not on the same level for me.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's just talk about the Wisconsin game because we did have in flagrant 2 in this game. So CJ Gunn and Max Klesmit, that's his name. CJ Gunn elbows him in the face after Klesmit is like rubbing his face on Gunn's chest. He got baited. I mean, that's what it is. He got completely baited.
Yeah. I agreed with the call.
Yeah.
It should have been a flagrant 2, but I disagree that CJ Gunn shouldn't have done it. First of all, you got to have more composure than that.
Yeah.
Max Klesmit should have probably had some form of.
Yeah, it could have been, unsportsmanlike conduct or something.
Tee him up or give him a flagrant one, or I guess it wouldn't be a flagrant one.
He was antagonizing him for sure.
Yeah.
And he brought it on.
Yeah.
But you look at how calls go. It's like the person who initiates or whatever, and then the person who retaliates. Like the person who retaliates is 99% of the time going to be the one who gets punished.
Yeah.
And not necessarily elbowing someone in the face, but like ticky-tack stuff like that between players happens 50 times a game.
Yeah.
CJ Gunn just did it in front of the entire Wisconsin bench and a ref with, all the cameras very clearly able to see.
Yeah, it was a dead ball.
It was a stupid move.
Yeah, it was a dead ball.
But that led Don Fisher on the radio to say that he's disappointed in the team for the first time in 51 years, and not because of how they're playing. And I think, Yeah.
It was. He's disappointed, or he's embarrassed.
Yeah.
For the team, not because of the score.
Yeah. And I think that's fair.
Yeah. 100%.
They need to do some soul searching.
They need to do something.
Because you don't have, like, I know Trey and X are the captains. Malik Renew seems like he's the leader on the floor to me.
Yep.
But they need to figure something out because they don't have a Trace Jackson Davis to call a players only meeting and get this season, fixed. Is the season dead? No.
Yeah,
it's not dead.
And just you bringing that up, there's a little kind of, it's kind of a stat, kind of not a stat, but just an observation for any Indiana fans, right? So through 19 games, they've played 19 games thus far. This year, they are 12-7 overall, 4-4 in the Big Ten. Last year, through 19 games, 12-7 overall, 4-4 in the Big Ten. Last year, after the season was over, they finished 23-12, and then 12-8 in the Big Ten. So they are. They
had the same record.
Yeah, they're in the same spot that they were record wise.
Yeah,
the exact same time last year, and no one was nearly as blown up about it.
Yeah,
they won some bigger games.
Yeah, and I think the difference.
As much,
yeah,
but they're still sitting in a very similar situation, record wise. And at the end of the day, record matters.
Yeah, they've got to win some quad one games to make it into the tournament. But if they're gonna get to 12-8, those games are gonna come. Those games, they have to.
Yeah.
But I just don't really understand how portions of the fan base went from, so happy last year to saying Woodson is a terrible coach and he has no control over the program and that he needs to be fired immediately and all this stuff, because this is the same guy that led you to 2 NCAA tournaments, got 2 wins in the last 2 years in the NCAA, produced an all, helped develop an All-American, get him drafted, helped to develop a first-round draft pick. And, Trace is top 10 rookie in the league right now. Just got announced.
Yeah.
And so people just need to calm down. Don't call the season dead. It's not dead. There's still plenty of ball to be left. There are things to fix, and if these things don't change, then you can look at this stretch of games as to be like, this is the turning point, and like where things either got better or they got worse.
Right.
And so it's not dead now. They've just got to figure it out, and they've got a week off until Illinois, and they need to figure some stuff out.
You know who doesn't need to figure much out?
Not much of anything.
They moved up 5 spots. They are currently 43 in KenPom. They went 2-0 this week, 16-3 overall with a 7-1 record in the Valley. Big win. Big win over Missouri State. They won by 22. And then they also won at Murray State by 9. So, looking good. They are
the most fun offense to watch.
Yes.
The most electric team in the state for sure.
Love watching this team. I mean, it's their best start at home since the 2019-2020 season. They won their first 10 games that season. They are currently 8-0. So, could it be a record-breaking season for them in that regard, among many other records that I'm sure that they're hitting across the board, but
yeah, the thing that holds them back from some things is the fact that Larry Bird led them to a 1-loss season. So it's like, can't be,
Yeah, it's.
But this is definitely one of the better records in recent years, and this one just feels really good. Like, you have that Alabama loss, which is understandable. You're playing without your starting center, who completely changes your game. You have a road loss in conference, which makes sense against Drake. It's the team who's tied for first with you.
Yep.
And you have that win at Michigan State, who is kind of a tough matchup because of how they play.
Yeah.
And a Michigan State who needed to win that game. And it's a historic matchup,
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
it had more stakes than that. So you're feeling really good about this season. It's just there's got to be a path for Drake and Indiana State to both play well enough and do enough in the season for them to both make the tournament.
For one of them to win Arch Madness.
Yeah. And the other get an auto bid.
Yeah.
And I think, I would like to see them square off in the championship of the MVC tournament.
Yep.
But we'll see. But I mean, they're first in effective field goal percentage, and I think first in 3-point percentage, maybe. They're top 3 at least in KenPom. They're just so fun, man.
Yeah. I mean, what's crazy is, and it's mostly they run a 6-person team. Like they rarely go to the 7th person unless several people get in foul trouble. I mean, against Murray State, their 5 starters combined for 83 of their 88.
Mm-hmm.
And I without even looking at the stats, I would say that Xavier Bledson probably had the other 5.
Almost guaranteed, yeah. Because Bledson comes in off the bench and contributes he contributes so much, and then you have Mason Miller coming in occasionally, and then that's usually if they go to 7 people, it's usually him. But that Murray State game, they did see a lot of foul troubles. So if you're talking about things that this team needs to figure out,
that's number 1.
Yeah, it's fouls. But you did see Josh Schertz put, I think he put Avila and I think Kent back in with 2 fouls with 4 minutes left. And they ended up only being down 3 at halftime. So while they had those troubles, those foul troubles, it didn't cost them the game. And they came out healthy in the second half. Kent went out with an injury for a minute, but came back in. But you saw them come back and not have foul trouble and just shoot lights out in the second half and just play the way that we thought they were going to play.
Yeah. But real quick, Missouri State game. Talk about they were lights out on the court, but their play actually wasn't the highlight of the game.
Oh yeah.
Tell us, Adam, what was the highlight of the Missouri State win?
Yeah, dude, Camden Harden hit a full court putt, 100-footer for $10,000. So he made $10,000, and that clip made it to number 1 on SportsCenter. That is what you love to see.
The things that I would do to hit a 20-foot putt on a golf course, and he did it, 4 times that, 6 times that for $10K. Feels good. I
bet the feeling in that building when they saw it getting it's like when it looks on target and you're like, no way. So that was huge. That basically is how Indiana State fans just feel about their team.
Yeah.
They feel so good about it. And they're just doing really, really well. They struggled in the first half against Murray State. They shot 4 of 14 from 3, but in the second half, they were 9 of 15 from 3. And in the first half, they had how many turnovers? 11 turnovers, and they finished with 16. So they cleaned it up after half.
Yeah.
They regrouped, and they stayed out of foul trouble and just
whatever Schertz said is he's just a magician with his words, I'm sure.
Yeah.
He's an incredibly talented coach. We've talked about his success.
The sixth winningest coach by percentage or something in college basketball.
He knows how to win. He knows how to get his guys to play to the best of their ability, and we saw that here.
You know who else got their guys to play to the best of their ability? Matt Crenshaw, because they went and were 16.5-point underdogs according to ESPN.
20 according to KenPom.
Yeah, so. And they won by 4 at PFW. PFW. Got a road win in conference.
Yes. They did go 1-1 this week.
Yeah. They did not carry that momentum.
16-15 with a 2-8 conference record, but beat their rival on the road.
Yeah, and they got up for this game, and they led most of it. They shot 60% from 3.
Yeah.
But only on 5 shots.
I don't care.
Which is crazy.
I mean, we've said before, they do not shoot well from 3.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take it. Yeah,
It-
like you said,
It almost feels worse when when a team beats you and they don't kill you from the 3-point line.
Yep. Oh, it feels terrible.
I remember once in freshman basketball we played Concordia, and they were just fundamental, man. And we got beat. And our coach afterwards was like, "You realize they didn't even attempt a 3? They didn't even take one, and they beat you." He was like, "You just got straight up beat. Like, not even can't even sugarcoat it, man. You just got destroyed."
That's bad.
So it just feels worse because they just killed you, and they didn't have to rely on making long shots.
Yeah. I mean, they, like you said, they led the entire second half. Purdue Fort Wayne got it within a one possession game a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
IUPUI held strong, and they always had an answer. It was the best they've looked.
They looked like
all season.
They looked like a team.
They looked like not a second to worst team in college basketball.
Yeah, and they looked. They just played well. And Counter went to the bench with foul trouble in the first half, and you were like, okay, this is where PFW makes the comeback. No, that's when IUPUI made their run.
Yeah.
And so, props to them winning on the road, especially at their rival. Man, they just got everything that they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And so, props to them where they played, hard on defense and just took care of the Dons.
Yeah, and against Robert Morris, IUPUI, they did a lot of their work inside the arc, naturally. And at the foul line, they outscored Robert Morris 30-22 in the paint, then 16-8 at the free throw line. But
yeah, this is insane. I know what you're going to say.
Outscored IUPUI 48-9.
Yeah. Robert Morris shot 50% from 3, 16 of 32. DJ Jackson had 2 of IUPUI's 3 3-pointers, and they attempted 13. So hard to win when you get outscored by 39 from the 3-point line.
Yeah.
Remember we just talked about feels like you absolutely get destroyed when they don't shoot a lot of threes?
They actually got destroyed by shooting a lot of threes. Yeah. Yeah, it was not great.
So that's the second team that we've seen this week win on the road and then have an absolute letdown at home. Ball State lost it in the final minutes,
I was trying to figure out who
IUPUI just got manhandled. And Robert Morris isn't an incredible team, but Robert Morris did also beat PFW, so we've seen them pull off some good wins.
Transitive property holds.
Yeah.
Notre Dame, they played one game this week. They moved up 9 spots in KenPom. They're at 151. Like the rum. They are 7-11 overall with a 2-5 ACC record. Lost by 4.
They should have had this game.
Yeah, lost by 4 in Boston against Boston College. They were winning by at least 12 in the first half. They were winning by 6 with 5 minutes to go in the game, and they lost by 4. So
yeah, and the fact that they were even in this game is kind of impressive because they had 14 turnovers and Boston College only had 3.
Yep.
And that led to 22 points for Boston College and only 3 for Notre Dame. So, they did something. What they do? Oh, they hit 6. They hit 6 of their 8 threes in the first half. So they hit those 6 threes, and you're like, they're on fire.
Yeah, they were 50%. And they were like,
and then they hit 2 in the second half.
Yeah.
So they
cooled off.
Yeah. And I think that's like the second time we've seen them like shoot lights out in the first half, and then you're like, oh, they're doing something, and then it just does not continue to the second half. The other team adjusts, and it just shots don't fall.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about this, in the first half, like you said, they were 6 from 12 from 3. Had 6 threes, 51% from the floor. Boston College was 33% from the floor. So look at that alone. It's like, okay, this is good.
Right,
this is a good sign. Yeah, and then Notre Dame shot 29% in the second.
Yeah.
They had 4 turnovers in the first half and 10 in the second half.
But that's just one you have to have, so that stinks that they didn't get it.
Yeah. Marcus Burton did have a his highest first half point total of the season with
For
15.
him.
Finished with 19.
He's shown a lot of promise,
Yep.
I think that, we talked about it at the beginning of the season, but he's got the green light, and
he's the guy.
yeah, he has the green light. Shrewsbury has the green light. So they can get some more pieces. They'll be good in the next couple of years.
Old-fashioned Great Gatsby.
Yeah.
Purdue Fort Wayne, talked about them a little bit. They moved down.
A lot.
Yeah, they are at 181 in KenPom. They were at 158 last week. So
This hurts because they've dropped 5 straight.
yeah.
Started 4-0 in conference, and now they've dropped 5 straight. So they're sitting 4-5 in conference, 13-7 overall. And you were looking at it, and they lost to San Francisco at San Francisco, and they were in that game for most of it.
And San Francisco's a good team.
Top of the WCC.
Yeah.
And Pitt was their other loss, who just knocked off Duke.
Yep.
So it's like,
Cameron.
yeah. So it's like, oh, they lost to these great teams, and they're just struggling in conference
Yeah, their
recently.
non-conference schedule is looking great.
Yeah. But
it's aging like fine wine. But
yeah,
not doing anything in the conference.
man, the Cleveland State loss, I'm gonna chalk up to Eric Mulder did not play.
Yep.
And in that game, they got out rebounded by 10. So who's gonna get the rebounds? Eric Mulder. You get out rebounded when he's not in there.
Speaking of Eric Mulder, I didn't realize this. He had a career high in boards against IUPUI,
Mhm.
12.
Yeah. Feels
The
like he
dude-
grabs 12 every minute.
Right. Like when you look at that, it's just like he puts in so much work on the glass. He's the hardest working big man in college basketball when it comes to rebounding.
Yeah.
I just
When it comes to effort, man.
Yeah.
I understand why he's did not play, man. His body probably hurting.
Yeah.
He throws,
It just, I saw that. It was like 12, his career high. That's not real.
yeah.
That has to be a first half stat. Like that has to be a single half stat. Nope. Wild to think about.
Yeah.
Pretty cool though.
Yeah. That IUPUI game was just disappointing. I mean, to have Jalen Jackson drop 22 and Bello have 19, but to lose the game at home is just, I mean, that's unacceptable.
Yep.
We talked about, Indiana has some things to work out. They've got some soul searching. I don't necessarily think that PFW has that, but they just have a problem closing games.
Yep.
They're just not great down the stretch right now. They've had a couple games that have just gotten away from them, and they need to work on that. So
Yeah, I mean, the Cleveland State game is a perfect example of it. The game was tied with, clocks ticking down. Purdue Fort Wayne had the ball. They had a chance to take the lead at the end of the game. They turned it over, and Cleveland State went and scored a bucket, and that pretty much sealed the game.
Yeah, and they were up 15 at one point in the second half.
Yep.
And they just couldn't stop Cleveland State. So, 4-5, I don't even know what the Horizon League is looking like right now. Let me pull it up for you. But it's Oakland's at 7-2 and Green Bay's at 7-3. The regular season title is gonna be pretty hard to pull off.
Yep.
But I think that this is a team that if they can figure out their second half collapses and letting teams run, I think that they've got a great chance in the Horizon League tournament.
Well, this is a team that we saw beat Green Bay earlier this season. And Green Bay sitting at the top of the conference.
Yeah.
That's just
Green Bay's 7-3.
a good sign about, potential the potential that they have. But
Yeah, so they beat Green Bay at home by 4.
Yeah.
And they won at Oakland. So they won by 21 at Oakland, and Oakland is top of the conference.
Yeah.
So they're struggling with Robert Morris, Purdue Fort Wayne. They're struggling with these teams in the lower half of the conference. Not Purdue Fort Wayne, with IUPUI.
Yeah, they're just struggling with teams that aren't good.
Yeah. So I'm still rooting for them to complete the comeback here and have a good second half of the conference season.
Yep.
Obviously, I would root for all of these teams, but I think that they can do it.
Yeah.
Is the difference between some of these teams that you look at having like a rough patch. I think that's what this is. 5 games, a lot of them could have gone either way.
Yep.
So they've just got to work hard, and I think that Kaufman will do a good job to get them back, and I think that they're going to almost feel like they're underseeded in the Horizon League tournament because of
Little chip on
these
their
5
shoulder.
games. Yeah.
Yeah.
But a team that will not be underseeded.
Well, could be.
They lose out, you know. Purdue, number 2 in KenPom, still behind Houston. They went 2-0 this week. They're 17-2 in overall and 6-2 in conference.
Mm-hmm.
So they won at Indiana, 87-66, and then they won at Iowa, 84-70. This is the largest margin of victory in the rivalry since 1934, when they won 47-13. I don't ever want to watch a game with that score. That's like Houston playing somebody now.
Yeah. Houston had a game just like that last week.
Yeah, it's disgusting. But they only made one. Like they made one. IU made one more 3 than Purdue did, but Purdue shot 5 fewer threes. So they were just so efficient. I mean, obviously, if you've been paying attention to college basketball, Edey just absolutely dominated. He was 33 of 14, and I can't remember how many free throws he had, 10 or, he made like 10 or something, 10 or 12, but just absolutely decimated IU's front line. They just couldn't stay on the floor, and by the time that they were off the floor, the game was in Purdue's hands.
Yeah. I mean, Ware played him really well, I thought.
Yeah.
Until Ware picked up the 2 fouls, then went out, and then Peyton Sparks just was eaten alive by Edey.
Yeah.
And which sucks. But for Peyton, really. But yeah, obviously it worked out in Purdue's favor in this instance.
Yeah. Edey's the first person ever to have back-to-back 30-point games in Assembly Hall. So he's stacking up like accolades like nobody ever,
It's like the Infinity Gauntlet.
Yeah. It's almost like like military jackets, how they have like the medals.
Yep.
His is like onto the back.
Yeah.
With like accolades.
It's just every game it's something new.
Yeah. The thing that jumped out.
It's a walking record book.
Yeah, basically. The thing that jumped out is like, other than the first like 5 points by Mbako, Purdue just never seemed concerned.
Yeah.
They just seemed like, it was just any other Tuesday.
Yeah.
And basically they played like it was their home floor. So
it's another day in the office, really.
Yeah. So,
how they approached it.
Props to them. And then they go in, and Edey drops his 3rd straight 30-point game, 10-rebound game at Iowa. So that's 9 in the last 3 games. He has 93 points and 52 rebounds. Pretty good, I guess.
Sight.
He's okay.
It's all right.
I don't know. I mean, I think we have to ask a question: are we sure he's the National Player of the Year? I mean, like,
I don't know.
I mean, it's like maybe he's just, this is just ordinary for him, right? We need to pick somebody who's like
right,
like doing impressive stuff randomly.
Yeah, exactly.
Consistently good but randomly great. Edey's, you're just too good all the time.
Yeah.
Smith had 9 assists, 9 points, 9 assists, and 6 boards. So the team's just great. But I'm gonna read off some mostly Zach Edey things, just because the accolades that this dude is piling up is insane. Obviously, it was a joke, obviously, but obviously he's going to be the National Player of the Year. Obviously, he'll be the first to do it since Ralph Sampson.
Yeah,
of course. Like, I said it on Twitter. He could get snapped by Thanos tomorrow, and he'd still win.
Yeah,
it's not even close.
Yeah,
but here are some things. So Purdue's the 3rd most wins over the last 3 seasons, behind Houston and Kansas, with 75. He's the first Purdue player since Glenn Robinson to record 3 straight 30 and 10 games. And Glenn Robinson did it with 4 straight. So big pressure on Edey to, keep that going. He's the first Purdue player with 3 straight 30 and 10 games against Big Ten teams since Terry Dischinger. I'm probably butchered that. Deisinger, where he did it 5 straight games. And he's the only major college player in the last 25 years to have at least 90 points, 50 rebounds, and 30 made free throws in a 3-game span. And then, like I said, he's 93 points, 52 rebounds, and 31 made free throws in the last 3. His career, he has 8 career 25 and 15 games. It's the most for any high major player in the last 15 years. Oscar Tshiebwe and Trace Jackson Davis are second with 6. He has 8, and he's not done yet. He now just needs 25 points and 8 blocked shots to become the 3rd college player ever with 2,000 points and 1,000 rebounds and 200 blocked shots while shooting at least 60% from the field. In some nice company there with the only 2 people to do it, being David Robinson and Patrick Ewing. So some legends.
They all right.
And, 51 career double-doubles is behind Deichinger's 54 and Joe Barry Carroll's 53 in Purdue history. So he'll get there, and I would assume the next 3 games is when it'll happen.
Yep.
If I know Zach Edey. I don't know. He's obviously just impressive. You could talk all day about Zach. There's almost an infinite number of like records or stats that he's breaking. So,
who's not breaking a lot of stats?
Just cherish it while you have him.
Southern Indiana.
Dude, this team can play with the best of them in the conference. Like the fact that they're 2 and 5
heartbreak after heartbreak for them.
It really is.
They dropped 4 spots in KenPom. They're at 335. Went 0-2 this week, 5-15 overall, and they're currently sitting at 2-5 in the conference. But a lot of those conference wins, like you said, have been like single digits.
Yeah,
less than 5 for a lot of them.
They lost by 1 possession to Southern Illinois, Edwardsville, Little Rock, and SEMO. So, they're 1 possession away in 3 different games from being 5-2 instead of 2-5.
Yeah. And I mean, so they lost to Arkansas Little Rock 77-75. Excuse me, and they lost to Morehead State 81-70. The big thing for me with this team is consistency.
Mm-hmm.
It's been the tail of their season. So many single possession losses. They just so many times like they'll just hit massive scoring droughts, and that's it. Like it's just run after run in their games, right?
Yeah.
Like either they'll go on a run, and then they'll give up a run, and then the run that they give up is more.
Yeah.
And they'll go on a run again, but it's still not enough. Like in this Little Rock game, they went 5 minutes without scoring, like shortly after it started. Then, after those 5 scoreless minutes, they went on a 10-0 run.
Mm-hmm.
They were down 3. Then they went on another run to lead by 1. Then Little Rock went on a run, and then they just...
And what they lose by? 2?
Yep, 2.
Yeah. And then Morehead State right now is sitting at 6-1 in conference, and they lost by 11, but they were in the game for, a good portion of it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's even after they went... they were dominated on the glass.
Yeah.
It was... On the first 10 minutes, it was a 12-1 rebound disadvantage for him. So
yeah, and Jeremiah Hernandez is electric, dude. He can shoot from the line like nobody's business. He was 16 of 16 from the free throw in the Little Rock game, and he had 28 points. And he was 17 of 19 from the free throw line, and he had 30 points. So if you're looking at this, you're like, oh my God, he had 28 and 30.
Okay.
Still only the second best week in Indiana, it's like,
yeah.
And unfortunately those were 2 losses. But, if they're 5-2, man, they could be 5-2 so easily. And then they're sitting half a game behind Western Illinois at 5-1. Oh my gosh. I want this team to go on a run and win the OVC tournament because they're capable.
I think so.
I think that they're
have it in them for sure.
They're a scary team to play, especially if Hernandez is on. Like, they're going to be a tough out in the tournament. But But, here's a free throw for you. Speaking of Hernandez, he averaged 4.9 points last year.
Mm-hmm.
It's obviously popped for, 30 points and almost 30 points this week, so a good week. What is he averaging right now?
12.5.
He's averaging 15.5 this year, so
that was close.
Some improvement.
A little bit.
Over 10 points per game. High volume shooter, but they need someone taking shots. I don't care what your
shooting percentage is, as long as you're making baskets.
Yeah.
Like,
and
we said it about Mackenzie Mbako several weeks ago. It's like, shoot the ball.
He has to be.
Throw it up.
He has to be up there for most fouls drawn. The last thing I want to talk about this is the Morehead State game had 51 fouls. 51 fouls. USI was 22 of 29 from the line, and Morehead State was 25 of 34. I'm glad I didn't watch the whole thing. That's disgusting.
Well, it's like the Houston game the other day.
Oh my God, yes. I think I have this in there.
It was Houston UCF. Well, if you have it in there, so we'll talk about it a little bit later.
I didn't. I have something in there, but keep it up. We'll hit on it in a minute.
Yeah.
But the last team we're going to talk about is Valpo. So Valpo got a home win. Sorry, Valpo got a road loss at Evansville. They lost by 3, and then they got a home win over UIC. So they beat Illinois Chicago by 7. So they're 1-1 this week. They went 6-13 overall, and they're 2-6 in the conference. And there's a lot to really be happy about with this team.
Cooper Schweiger, one of them.
Isaiah Stafford, the other one. They're just really great. I mean, Stafford's a walking bucket. He had 31 points and only 1 turnover in the game at Evansville. It's his career high, and he had 30 points earlier this year at Illinois. So he beat his career high, and Schweiger had 12 and 10, so his back-to-back double-doubles, and I think he was 1 rebound away. Yeah, 1 rebound away from a 3rd straight double-double in the UIC game. But they've got some really nice pieces. Jackson Edwards is really nice. I like those 3, and I think Schweiger's probably on the all-freshman team.
Schweiger or Schweiger?
I don't know.
Can't remember. We talked about it with Paul.
And I've heard it. I think it's at the time. Anyway, he's going to be on the all-freshman team in the Missouri Valley. I'm almost certain.
100%. I mean, he had 5. So he had 10 rebounds, something like that, against Evansville, and 5 of them were on the offensive glass.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's rebounds are one thing. Offensive rebounds, that's just
money.
Dominant.
Yeah, he's great. But unfortunately, they should have had the win. Probably at home, or at Evansville. If the game is at Valpo, they win it.
Yeah, guaranteed
by maybe double digits. But
even if Hunter McHouse doesn't play, I think they win.
Yep. I think that's why he came back.
I think he was just a game changer enough for Evansville that obviously, he had 7 points, and that is more than what they won by.
Yeah.
So take those 7 points away, that they, Valpo wins. But
I think that there's a lot to be feel positive about. They're
100%.
They're 2-6 right now in conference, but so is Evansville. We thought Evansville was going to finish middle of the pack, and Valpo would finish dead last, but UIC's 1-7. So doing better than we thought, and this is still year 1.
100%. Yeah, it's
you're playing with house money basically.
And not only we talk about it with Paul, is not only is it year 1, but Roger Powell got hired late in the cycle, so he didn't necessarily have as much time as other first year coaches to bring in.
Yep. And he brought
high level guys.
Yeah, and he brought in mostly young players. So you would expect it to be like this. He didn't choose a win now approach. He wanted to build, and I think that's what he's doing.
Yeah. No, it's I'm with you for sure.
You want to talk about Chitwood? You ready?
There's one thing I wanted to bring up about Valpo.
Okay.
And that's unfortunately, one of their players did not win Jimmy Chitwood Player of the Week. So I would like you to tell me who you picked over a Beacon. Who did you pick for the Jimmy Chitwood Player of the Week this week?
Well, I mean, you gotta at some point you gotta count wins into it. People who will their team to wins, and surprisingly, somehow, this is the very first time that he's won Jimmy Chitwood Player of the Week, and that's Zach Edey from Purdue. So I talked about all those insane things going on, but at Indiana, at their rival, he had 33 points, 14 boards, and he went 11 of 12 from the line. At Iowa, he had 30 points, 18 rebounds, and 4 blocks. So that's 2 huge road wins and the biggest win for Purdue in Assembly Hall since 1934. How could you not pick him? I mean,
I'd say that he made a pretty good case for himself, to win this week.
It's like his every week is great. Every week he has is great. This one just stood out a little bit more. And I like to usually go with Chitwood to like a smaller or like someone who stood out,
who's
did
not
something
a national player of the year.
Someone who did something out of the ordinary,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And so if you're thinking like,
I mean, you could make the case that what Edey did this week was out of the ordinary, considering he was the first to ever do it.
Yeah,
with the
3,
back-to-back.
yeah, and that's not, and we're not even talking about, because it's not in this week, is his 30-point game last week.
Yeah.
So 3. We were only talking about 2 of them.
Yep.
So it's obviously Zach Edey. There was a case for, Davion Bailey had a case for it. Stafford had a case for it. Freaking all of Indiana State's team has a case for it every week too.
Yeah.
But obviously it's like Edey stood out amongst his team and amongst everyone in Indiana. So Zach Edey is Jimmy Chitwood this week, and he definitely deserves it. But let's talk about some games that are going on next week in the state of Indiana. The first thing I want to talk about is Ball State. So they've got 2 games this upcoming week, and they've got an away game at Buffalo where they're favored by 2, and a home game against Northern Illinois where they're favored by 3. These are must wins.
100%.
Maybe they're cannot loses. I don't know.
I'd say there cannot loses.
You can't lose these, and like they, especially
Actually, no,
blowing.
I'd say they're one conference win. They're must wins.
Yeah,
they're must wins.
Like they have to have these wins, especially like that Miami game was in the bag.
Yeah,
and they let it slip right through their fingers. So those are 2 huge. Probably haven't had a bigger week for Ball State yet this season than this one. If you lose one, or God forbid both, like your hopes are crushed.
Yeah.
What else, Jaron?
Well, it's interesting to me. Notre Dame went and played against Boston College in Boston, right? And they
almost won. They lost by 4, I think.
Almost won. I was scrolling back up the notes to figure out what the score was. Yeah, lost by 4. They now play Boston College at home, and
it's like the quickest turnaround.
It's interesting that they play them in back-to-back weeks, but they're 2-point dogs at home. So apparently, Purcell Pavilion's only worth 2 points to Notre Dame's success. But I think it'll be a fun bounce-back game, right? They had the game in their grasp.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about it. They lost it late, so they have an opportunity to turn around and prove themselves a little bit more against BC. So that's gonna be a fun game to watch.
Kind of on the same note of when I was talking about Ball State, those are must wins. I think Purdue Fort Wayne, they've only got 1 game, I think.
Yeah,
and it's at Northern Kentucky. That is probably a can't lose for them.
Yeah, we did see them beat Northern Kentucky.
They've proven that they can smoke the top of the conference, so they can beat anyone. They just have to win this game. They can't lose this game. I guess I said it's a can't lose.
Yeah, it's a can't lose.
They can't lose it, and because then you're down 6 in a row. So can't lose that one. A must win for Indiana at Illinois. They have more quad one opportunities after this, but they're 15-point dogs.
I don't even think it's a must win from a quad one perspective.
For morale.
I think it's a must win for morale, not only for your players, but for your fans. Like, they've got fans in Assembly Hall booing them.
Yeah.
Right? Like, real messed up. And that's me censoring my words. They need to pull it off. They need to work some magic in Assembly Hall.
The State Farm Center now.
For those of you who don't know, the State Farm Center, which is where Illinois plays, it used to be called Assembly Hall.
Yeah, and both of their football stadiums are Memorial Stadium. Who had it first?
I mean, we're Illinois' biggest rival, according to Illinois fans.
Everyone's Illinois' biggest rival. Evansville got a can't lose game against Illinois State. You got to get back on track after you got decimated.
Playing back in the Ford Center, 2-point favorites.
Not Ball State. Butler, their game at home against Villanova, they're 1-point dogs according to KenPom. That's not a must win or a can't lose, but that's a game you really need to have.
Yep.
That'll probably be a quad one or a fringed quad one game. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure where Villanova is in the net, so let's just say it's a quad 2 game. So you just need to win that one at home.
So last game that I wanna talk about.
Mm-hmm.
It's one that you might have overlooked because of how bad they are.
Okay.
Purdue playing at the Rack.
Because of the curse.
Purdue, 2 years in a row, Rutgers has beat number 1 ranked Purdue at home, at the Rack. And there's a good chance Purdue is ranked number 1. I guess no,
because UConn didn't lose. They won't jump them.
Either way, top 5 Purdue team going into the Rack. It could.
Dare I say top 2 Purdue team? Dare I say really should be number 1 Purdue?
Yeah,
but
right.
Yeah.
So it's that's gonna be interesting. Purdue is 11-point favorites, and Rutgers is not very good.
Yeah, but Rutgers they just make the game dirty. They make the game dirty, and they play weird. It'll be an interesting game, and I think if they win, since they beat Maryland at Maryland, I think if they win, that's the last Big Ten arena that Zach Edey hasn't won in. So you're either looking at Rutgers trying to make it messy or Zach Edey being like, I'm not finishing in my career not winning here and dropping 48.
Yeah.
We'll see. Good eye, Jaron.
It will be a game.
Yeah. You want to zoom out of the state right now?
Yeah, let's take a look at the other 49. The ones where basketball is not as important, but it still is played.
So first off, let's talk about last week. So this past week.
Yep.
Texas loses to UCF, and UCF players are doing the horns down.
If you're watching the video on YouTube, this is the horns, right?
Yeah, Texas Longhorns.
Horns down. They just
and
flip that upside down.
And Texas people,
the most disrespectful thing for any Texas fan.
Yeah, and it's ridiculous. I mean, it's a friggin' hand gesture.
Yeah.
And so they were doing that in the post game handshake lines, and Rodney Terry's like jumping on UCF players, like saying, that's disrespectful. Don't do that. Blah 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 blah. And then he talks about it in the post game press conference. And he's talking about how disrespectful it is and stuff. And I think it's hilarious.
I co-sign anything horns down.
Horns down, dude.
I also have a degree from West Virginia University, which is in the conference with.
But
Texas,
also,
but still,
it makes it funnier because of how mad they get.
Yeah,
and if you're a Purdue fan, you expect people to say to boiler down, right?
It's just
It comes with having this thing that you're proud of, right?
Yeah.
Obviously. And it's just so funny. And the kicker of it all is that in the post game, he's talking. Rodney Terry's talking, and he's like, it's just so disrespectful. We don't jumping down like we won the national championship when we win a game. And then literally the next game, they win at the buzzer against top 10 Baylor. And literally as soon as the ball goes in and the time runs out, homie is jumping so high to celebrate the win. It's like, dude, you literally just said you don't do this.
Yeah.
Literally your last post game. I just hate Texas. No, I don't hate Texas. I just don't like this Texas team. I think Rodney Terry's a fine hire. I don't know if, it'll work out long term. I don't really care.
Mm-hmm.
But he's just making it so cringe, dude. Like, he's just being so weird about it.
That was a pretty iconic thing that happened. Another iconic thing.
Oh my God.
Pitt got their first win in Cameron Indoor since 1979 over number 7 Duke. And the Pitt player, as soon as it happened, jumped up on the scorer's table, threw his hands up, just stared at the Cameron Crazies as everyone's saying obscenities to him, doing some hand gestures.
I mean, it's been 45 years.
Yeah.
I'd do that too.
100%. 100%. I love it. But it was just one of the most iconic things I saw, come out of basketball this past week.
Yeah. I liked that a lot. I mean, I don't like Duke, so I especially liked it.
Yep.
But if your team hasn't won there in 45 years and your conference opponents, do that, dude. 100%. I'm all for it. 6 Tennessee rolls ranked 6 Tennessee rolls Alabama by 20. Houston had the ugliest game of the week by holding UCF to 16%.
Not even 16%, 15.9%.
Yeah. I rounded up to be nice.
They were 7 for 44 from the field, 4 of 21 from 3. They did shoot 24 of 33 from the free throw line.
Woo-hoo.
So half of their points, of UCF's 42 came from the line.
It was more than half. And
rounded.
Yeah, to be nice. And this is the same UCF team that beat a Texas team that I don't think is great, but did also beat Kansas at home.
That is true.
Not at Kansas, but UCF was home.
Yep.
Creighton wins in triple overtime. I think that's probably one of the top 5 games of the season.
Yep.
Kadari Richmond had a triple-double in their loss. Kalkbrenner was close to a triple-double, 1 rebound and 3 blocks away. And that was after UConn held Creighton to 48 points. It was an electric game. I don't know. We talked about the Dayton game last week. Archie Miller was on the court playing defense, basically, literally interrupted a fast break.
Someone had to because Rhode Island wasn't.
But I mean, Dayton has Deron Holmes. He's probably going to be an All-American, probably first team, and I think that they're looking to be, Final Four level again, which is nice to see after they lost that season to COVID. And then number 10 Memphis lost at home to South Florida. So shout out to Luke, who's not listening. They were up by 20, which is like the largest blown lead in the AP by an AP top 25 team in 14 years. There was no one there because there's a bunch of ice in the area in Memphis, but still they followed that up with a loss at Tulane. Not great. But well.
This week. Last week we started it, every day we're going to have a game of the day. So if you can't watch, if it's the only basketball game that you can watch on any given day, we have our picks and suggestions for you. So Monday night, our game of the day is Wake Forest at North Carolina, tipping off at 7 p.m. Eastern. It is an in-state matchup between the second place in the ACC, Wake Forest, and first place, North Carolina.
Yeah.
So should be a very fun game with major conference implications.
Tuesday, we've got number 5 Houston goes to number 20 BYU. That's a 9 p.m. game because it's being played in Utah. 2 teams that look like they could finish at the top of the Big 12 at one point. They still could. It should be a good game. I think their styles are going to be fun against each other. It might be an ugly game, but definitely one worth watching if you like the Big 12 race.
Or you're a lunatic and want to watch a 9 p.m. tip-off game.
Yeah. Oh,
Nothing's worse than
8:30 was bad enough
Yeah.
for that IU Wisconsin game.
yeah. Wednesday evening, we've got another rivalry game. Auburn at Alabama, playing at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Again, another first place versus second place. Auburn being number 1 in the SEC, Bama being number 2. Bama's a team you never know who's going to show up.
Yeah.
Auburn is playing like a top 5 team in the country.
Agreed.
It should be fun, could be fun, will be a game.
Yeah, it's a rivalry. Thursday, we've got some Horizon League content coming for you. Oakland is at Green Bay at 7 p.m. Oakland's in first in the conference, and Green Bay is half a game back right now in the Horizon League. So Purdue Fort Wayne's got some work to do to get back into those talks, but Purdue Fort Wayne's beaten both of these teams, so they should be right there. Unfortunately, they're not, but Horizon League content on Thursday for you if you can watch that.
Yep. Friday night, Big Ten game. Major season implications on the line for both these teams. We've got the Michigan State Spartans playing at number 11, Wisconsin at 8 p.m. It's very much a save the season win for Michigan State, and then a keep the lead in the Big Ten game for Wisconsin.
Yeah, for sure. Purdue's knocking on Wisconsin's door. We'll see. Saturday there are a ton of games. Here's a free throw for you, Jaron, because I might have been off by 1 or 2, because counting this high is hard. But
Okay.
there are how many? I think they're all Division I games between 2 Division I teams. How many games are there on Saturday?
83.
You're almost to half. There are 154 games. I think I might be off by 1 or 2, but still, there's over 150 games. So if they're all D1 games, which I think all of them are, most of them at least, that's 308 of the 362 D1 teams that are playing. So big Saturday. So what game did we pick when almost everyone's playing? Seton Hall at number 17, Marquette at 1 p.m. They're both in the top tier of the Big East. Big East is just fun. Any game in the Big East is fun.
Yeah,
So
Seton Hall's playing great basketball. They just had that triple overtime
loss, yeah.
And then Marquette is Marquette. So Sunday, end of the week, on some more Horizon League play. We've got Northern Kentucky at Youngstown State at 1:30. Both are in Horizon League contention. They're right there with Oakland and Green Bay. It's kind of the 4 teams at the top of the pack right there. So could be fun.
Yeah. Horizon League's getting interesting. Now we've got a new segment for you. Staying in the 49 states here, we have a guess the game. So we each picked a game and didn't tell the other one which game we picked. And it would be hilarious if we picked the same one. Probably happen at some point. But I'm gonna describe my game to Jaron, and he's gonna have to try and guess it based off my clues. And then he's gonna do the same for me. So, Jaron, I'll let you go first this week. What's your guess the game?
The world's greatest go gambling.
The world's greatest go gambling. Okay, so it's UNLV at UNLV. No, at UNLV. The world's greatest. I don't know. I'm trying to think of who's even in the conference of UNLV. Air Force at UNLV.
No way.
Did I really get it?
Yep. Air Force at UNLV, 11 p.m. tip-off on Tuesday.
Oh my gosh. The world's greatest gave me some trouble.
Yes.
Explain it.
The world's greatest Air Force. Never heard that phrase?
I'm not tuned in.
The United States Air Force is highly regarded as the world's greatest Air Force.
Yes, it makes sense.
Some respect on their name, Adam.
At least I got it. At least I got it.
You got there.
See, the problem is like their conference games, so it limits it. But then I'm like, do I even know who's in this conference?
Well, I was debating between go gambling or world's greatest, visit the Strip. But I figured visit the Strip might be a little too much of a giveaway.
Yeah, that was good. That was a good one. I like that. Okay, so Jaron, this week, my guess the
0%
game.
chance I get this right, by the way.
I don't know. I think I've got it. Okay, so mine, it does not have as great of a clue as yours does. Yours is fire. Mine is 2 state schools that are not actually states play each other this week. So, like, think Murray State, right?
Yeah.
Murray's not a state. The state school.
There's a million state schools.
I'm giving you more. I got more to it.
Okay.
So a state school that's not a state school in Idaho plays one in California. So think of what?
Only thing I can think about Idaho is potatoes, dude.
Okay. Just think of some schools in Idaho. They both have state in the name, but they're not
State
states.
at San Diego State.
You're so close, dude. It is Boise State. It's not San Diego State. Do you want to have another crack at it? And it's not like a Cal. It's not one of the UC schools.
Okay. Boise State at.
It's not a coastal town either. It is a town though. So you're
Oakland State.
No. You want one more, or you just want me to tell you?
Just tell me.
It's Boise State at Fresno State.
I was thinking. I had Sacramento State. I was like, there's no way Boise State would be playing Sacramento State.
There's just there's so many of them, but
that's good.
You know, wonder. I hope our listeners got them. If you got it faster than one of us, let us know.
Yeah, let us know in the comments if you guessed quicker than either Adam or I.
Good bit, Jaron.
That's fun. I like that.
Yeah, that's fun especially because there were so many games.
Yeah, so many games. And if you thought it was fun too, please like the episode, share it with a friend. If you know someone that you think should be listening or watching our content, send them the link. Tell us to follow us on Twitter, on Instagram, subscribe to the channel on YouTube. Like we said at the beginning of the show, any support you give us helps, so it can help us grow the show. We can continue to put out more fun content like this.
Mm.
And
we're the state of basketball basically everywhere, but Twitter, we're the state of b-ball. Twitter's limitations on character
length, limitation, yeah.
But thanks for coming out, and hope you got the games.
Yeah. And with that, the clock is showing 000, so it's time for us to get out of here. Thanks for checking in of the State of Basketball podcast. See you next week, and remember, in 49 states,
it's just basketball.